Welcome back to another edition of Culinary Connections Distribution Dialogues, where we talk to leaders in the food service space or just anyone in building a brand within food service. And joining me today is Matt Jamie of Bourbon Barrel Foods out of Louisville, Kentucky. I've had the pleasure of knowing Matt for over a decade and watching him build his brand, which is a bit unique in a sense that you have a retail store that you operate, and then you have direct to consumer. You sell into retail, and then
Yeah.
you also sell into food service. And for those that don't know Matt, he's an awesome individual, trained chef that started his business. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about the business and what you're up to?
Sure. No, I appreciate everything you said. Um, has it only been 10 years that we've known each
That,
other?
that's been a little over. Well, it's been over. Yeah, not quite 15, but
Can I digress a little bit?
yeah, of course.
I mean, so when you showed up in Louisville and I met you, there, and you told me what you were being asked to do, and it was amazing to see it happen and to see you not only grow what you were brought here to do, um, but just evolve and just, I mean, it was such a small category in this town. Um, it was a necessary one that was missing. So you did an amazing job. And I know it wasn't easy because you shared a lot with me, like doors literally being slammed in your face. Um, but you stuck with it, which was impressive. And I think that the industry has evolved, into this being more like products like mine, stories like mine, um, being necessary in food service, uh, to differentiate, items on menus or, chef style or, I know it's important to me to know where my ingredients come from. Um, and I know it's like, all the chefs that I deal with, it's as important to them. There's got to be a connection. Locale is one thing, technique, is another, and uniqueness. So those are all important things for companies like mine. And you saw it a long, long time ago. And I know I'm not the only brand that you've come in contact with, but you always made me feel like I was the only one.
Well, I appreciate that. I think you're right.
Yeah.
We've gone through a movement in food where, years and years ago, like artisan food was just the norm. Like just, we sourced regionally, and you had, you know, cheesemakers and artisans across the board here in the States, because you had freight and logistic challenges that you just had to have that in your area. And then we went to a mass produced society that everything was based on convenience and price. And now we're evolving back into having that artisan feel across everything that a concept has, whether it's the chairs or the plates or it's the paintings or it's the whatever it may be. Is it's storytelling from the coffee to the cocktail to the plate. I mean, everything when you walk in isn't cookie cutter anymore.
Oh yeah, pots, pans, utensils, clothing, uniforms. Have you read a book? There's a book that I read, I don't know, last year called Return of the Artisan.
No,
You should read it.
okay,
It gives it defines a movement, right? And it's not a recent thing. It gives times and dates and names, for people like me to identify with. Um, it goes all the way back to, the Industrial Revolution, and with there were people there that didn't really believe in mass producing things, and then it brings you forward into post World War II, and then the counterculture movement like hippies, and then there's the whole California cuisine movement that moved across the country. um, there's a chapter on Kentucky in there,
Hmm.
which, I mean, honestly, like, I I didn't identify with that chapter as much as I did the other ones. It was strange. I thought I'd be real. I mean, it was, you form your own opinion on it, but I guess my point is it's a great read. Like,
Hmm.
you should definitely read it. We should
I'm, I'm
book club on it.
I'm shocked. I'm shockingly going to. I had this plan today to go to Barnes and Nobles today. There's one right by my office. There's a book called Day Trading Attention by Gary Vaynerchuk, and it talks about how we've shifted the way that we consume everything. Uh, podcast, right, or
Mhm.
talk shows that used to be on AM radio stations, right, have now evolved into to podcasts. And anything you read can now be on a Kindle or whatever. But as much as I love technology, I still like going into places, and even taking my kids to the grocery store. I mean, I swear, as they get older, they're gonna, if they could do supermarket sweep, they will know where all the different things in the grocery store are. And I take great pride in that. And there,
Yeah.
some people have no idea what things cost in the store. They're going to have a very very good perspective on that. But going back to quantity and mass producing, it's a funny thing that you used to say is that Kikkoman would spill more in a day than you would produce. And for those that don't know, Matt produces a microbrewed soy sauce among many other things. But you know, I've heard the story. Tell us how it kind of came about. Like, where did you draw the inspiration? Where were you, and how did that soy come to be?
Uh, sure. So, yeah, I started this company, Micro-Brewing soy sauce. That was the original idea. I wrote a business plan, probably the most thorough document, maybe even the most thorough anything I've ever done in my life. Um, and it was how to make and sell soy sauce. And, you know, I get asked all the time, like, why soy sauce? Did you have this lifelong passion for, brown, briny liquid? And I'm like, no, I didn't. It was, for me, I, it was an off the cuff statement that I made to a buddy of mine. I knew I wasn't going to be in the kitchen, as a career. As much as I loved it, it just wasn't, it just wasn't going to be. But I wanted to stay in food, flavor. Uh, I had an aptitude for it. I was good at it, and I hadn't been really good at anything in my life up to that point. And I was early 30s at this time, and so I just said to a buddy of mine, we were drinking. We were at a bar eating oysters, drinking beer, and I just said, you know what? No one's microbrewing soy sauce in this country. I might do that. I want to do something that nobody's done. And he liked the idea. Actually, described it as genius. But you have one of those genius ideas, and so, like, for me, like, the first thing I do is, you know, Google was relatively new at the time, and so I Googled it and, like, to see if anybody else had the same genius idea, and I couldn't find anybody that was doing it. And so there, that was one thing, and then the other was, why? Why wouldn't anybody do this? And I couldn't find a good enough reason not to do it. So I threw myself into researching soy sauce. At first, how to make it, how to scale it, because you can make it at home relatively easy. It's 5 ingredients, and it's like activating yeast to make bread. We've got a temperature range to operate in that's optimal, and then we have to wait. It's a minimum 6 months to brew soy sauce. Super premium, varieties of soy sauce that are available around the world, mostly Japan, are aged between 12 and 18 months. Ours is 12 months. You mentioned Kikkoman. Theirs is naturally brewed. It's a great product. They're like the Budweiser of the soy sauce industry. And it's true. They'll probably spill more in a day than I will still make. Well, I can, we're doing about between 9 and 10,000 gallons a year. Um, so maybe as much as they'll spill in 6 months, who knows? Or maybe gets left in the lines. But they brew in the U.S. They have 5 plants worldwide, 2 in the U.S. doing 100,000 gallons each a day. So 200,000 gallons a day in the U.S. alone. Um, are they my competition? No. I mean, but they're in my market, and I feel like we're redefining it. For a long time, I was the only one doing this, which is kind of lonely. I've been very open about the process and how I started, and since then, and it's also, it's the way that our economy is built. It's like built on competition, and so it was almost inviting people into it. And now there's probably 6 microbrewers that I'm aware of that are startups. Uh, Maybe 4 in North America. There's 1 in Europe that's in Rotterdam. And I just heard from a guy, over the last 10 years, I'd hear from him periodically. He finally got up and going, and he's in Buenos Aires. I'm going to go visit him in January, I think, waiting for it to
Awesome.
get warm down there.
Yep.
So it's becoming a thing, and the more people talking about it, the cheaper it is for me to tell the story. And, like I said, it looks like a thing. It looks like a thing. And I know all of them. I'm, no one will ever take away the fact that I was the first. And now it's an effort to just be the best.
So talk about early on in the first couple of years, when you started the business, like what were some of the things that you experienced that you remember in starting your business? And I'm asking from a place of I'm starting my own business, and
Right.
there's like evolution of what I thought it was 6 months ago versus where it is now, and would I do things different, and so many unknowns that I experience, and then the roller coaster of emotions of like, man, this shit sucks. And then there's the highs, and then you go back into a low. And how did you just dealt with it, just rode the wave?
I've never thought it sucked. I think for me, like I had never run a business before. I was essentially unemployable. Like I couldn't work for anybody. I had short stints. Like the longest I ever had a job was like 2.5 years. Um, so I had this blind passion for wanting to do this, um, and zero knowledge of how to do it. Everything I learned, I experienced or read about, um, and it was not knowing what to be afraid of. Like allowed me to move fast and just a deep rooted belief that it would work. I had so many people tell me that microbrewing soy sauce, like it just won't work. And I didn't listen. They were probably right. I had a lot of things happen for me that kept me going. It was, it just, I feel like I've always had something like looking out for me, um, helping me navigate this, allowing me to make mistakes, but um, survive them, learn from them, move on. And it's something that it's a practice I continue. If we're not making mistakes, we're not thinking. Uh, but in starting a soy sauce brewery in Kentucky, the more I researched it, the more it made sense. You would expect something like this to happen in Napa, maybe even Brooklyn, because that's where a lot of these really exciting, forward thinking, uh, especially in my category, which is artisan food. That's where that happens. But it made sense in Kentucky. You know, soy sauce is a brewed fermented product. Um, it has it's the oldest, most widely used condiment in the world, so it has a history. Bourbon, Kentucky, uh, we're known for bourbon, right? Among other things, but bourbon um, is obviously it's fermented and distilled, and the processes are similar. We finish our soy sauce in bourbon barrels just to differentiate it a little bit more. Um, but it was, the idea that I had, and then, the research that I did aligned with what was happening in the bourbon industry, which was, it was getting popular and it was growing. And this was, I started researching in 2003. I began the company in 2006, like legally. And that's when bourbon started going like this. And it did not have a specialty food component that aligned with it. There were private labelers and people making barbecue sauce for different bourbons. But no one was doing something that really um, uh, really, you know, showcased everything that the state of Kentucky had to offer, um, agriculturally, culinarily, um, and, while at the same time aligning with the bourbon industry. And Bourbon Barrel Foods wasn't even a name in my business plan, but I saw this opportunity with the soy sauce, and that's how I built my plan. And I was just going to do the one product. Um, and but I had to figure out how to pay for it. And so I started doing things like bourbon smoked sea salt and bourbon smoked pepper. Because in my house, if you ask for the salt, you got the pepper too. Paprika, sugar, other sauces and condiments that didn't take me a year to make. Um, and I called that company Bourbon Barrel Foods, and it just grew. And eventually my accountant told me that you don't have two companies, you have one. And so Bourbon Barrel Foods. And, it was all an effort to grow the soy sauce, which is what we've done. And I'll get into our expansion here in a little bit. But with Bourbon Barrel Foods, it allowed me to become that specialty foods component to the whole bourbon country experience. If you visited one of the distilleries 18 years ago, they all looked the same. Like their visitor centers, like if you knew you were at you know, if you knew you were at Woodford Reserve, you'd see Woodford there, but their gift shop would be kind of the same as far as like the gourmet or specialty food offerings as it would be at Heaven Hill. Um, we differentiated that. We made it more special. Um, and I have over 150 products now, four different kinds of soy sauce, but over 150 products. And, you talked about the evolution of what you're doing and how, what the intention was when you started versus, what it is that you're doing now. And, there's all that stuff that happens, but the preparation you do allows you to pivot and grow and understand when that unexpected happens and embrace it, because it happens with every business. For me, it wasn't so much the Bourbon Barrel Foods surprise as much as it was uh, signing a licensing contract with Brown Forman to develop products for Woodford Reserve. I, what a dream, to be able to do products for a label like that, and they trusted me to do it. I was doing something right. I mean, I still am, but at that moment, when they said, "Would you do this for us?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and then they asked me to come and pitch products to them. And, I had 6 lined up. I made up 5 more the morning before I went over there. So I had like 11 products to pitch to a team of about 20, and they picked them all.
Amazing.
I know. I mean, I love what I do, but that's how we grew. Was embracing challenges and taking advantage of opportunities, all the while knowing that the soy sauce was like the most important thing to me. Um, and since I've had all those products out in the market, and we're growing the product line like every year. This year we'll launch close to 24 products, um, which sounds crazy, but they're different brands and different categories. Um, and but it because of all of that, I've been able to invest in the expansion of our soy sauce production. So we went from being able to do maybe 2 to 3,000 gallons a year to 9 to 10,000 gallons a year.
Amazing. Well, and now your company is approaching nearly two
10 years.
decades of being, official, and thinking about how products were sold and promoted 20 years ago. Like, Facebook didn't exist 20 years ago. There was no Instagram, there was no TikTok, there was no sponsored content. Um,
Mhm.
it was really hand selling and grinding, and that, you would go to fancy food show to go get noticed, right? Because that was the incubation center.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself selling to chefs when you were getting going?
Chefs were a very important part of our story and our growth. You got to think back. Like I started in 2006. Um, Recession was 2008. Um, we survived that, but you know, chefs really embraced what we were doing, and I don't know how true it is these days, but back then it seemed like chefs became rock stars like almost overnight. And they still have a voice, but they had a very loud voice. Uh, they had a very loud voice back then, and they could take a product, and feature it on their menu. And for me, it allowed the customer to see, oh wow, they're using bluegrass soy sauce here. What is that? And then they'd go to their retailer and they'd make the connection. And so, Sean Brock, Ed Lee was using this on his menu, and now here it is at Whole Foods or whatever specialty store was in their city, and it gave us street cred, and so I rely heavily in food service. It was thought about in my business plan, but I wasn't going to be making enough to do that. But and I wasn't, but we made accommodations to be able to do it. And it's been important to us. And now it's an entire, part of our sales matrix.
It's
It's really,
such a credibility booster when you're able to name drop, an Ed Lee, a Sean Brock. Hey, they use it because, number one, your product is more expensive, right?
Mhm.
Naturally, because of the process. Um, and it can be unique in a sense of the ancillary products, right? The soy is one thing, but some of the other ones, Matt has a really cool product called Kentuckyaki, which is his spin on teriyaki. And it's been a while since I've had to sell it, but I think it's sorghum, the Worcestershire, ginger. What else is in it?
Oh, it's sorghum and a little bit of bourbon. It's one of the few products where we actually use bourbon as an ingredient.
And I think Sean was using it for like a pig ear dish. Was like what?
Yeah, he was buying glass bottles to bring into Husk to do a Kentucky Yaki pig's ear lettuce wrap. And it was like, I messaged him. And this was like when Sean Brock was still calling to place his orders for the special things that he would find, right? And so he would call to get sorghum from me. Honestly, he didn't know I was making soy sauce. And Husk had this rule for themselves that nothing would come through their kitchen doors that wasn't produced in the South. And so when he found out that someone in Kentucky was making soy sauce, it was a game changer for him. Sorghum was why he called. The Kentucky Aki he found because it was it's a quality product with a very simple ingredient list. It's very clean, and it's a labor saver. He could do it himself, but somebody's already doing it for him without preservatives, with real special ingredients that the ingredients have a backstory. So I said, look, if you'll keep buying this, and if you plan to keep buying this, I'll put it in a gallon container for you so that you don't have to bring all this glass in. And he's like, you'd do that? And I'm like, yeah, I would. And it's one of my most popular products now,
It's an amazing product.
and
How is the process changed for you in from when you started to now? Obviously, it's bigger, but have you found ways to become more efficient? I mean, I remember walking into your building for the first time. I thought it was cool, and every time I go back, it gets bigger and bigger. And uh, you're seeing, well, if you're seeing this on YouTube, you're seeing a beautiful test kitchen in the background.
oh, yeah,
Uh, but
it was actually by accident.
yeah,
Um, so, yeah, you know, with 150 products, obviously I don't make them all here. What we do here is make soy sauce, which we just this last year finished about a 3 year renovation of about 60,000 square feet. And I started in the shipping area, went into the production areas, rebuilt uh, our soy sauce brewery, um, to get to the capacity we are, and then we rebuilt our smoker room. So we smoke all the spices here. And I started out doing that in this little smoker in an alleyway. And the smoker was about the size of a dorm room refrigerator. And now I have 6 smokers that are the size of F-150s, with room to add 6 more, which is my goal. Um, so for us to evolve, those are our core products. Those are how we built our name, by doing bourbon smoked spices, and the soy sauce, and uh, but I developed relationships with co-packers around the country, and I would develop a product, like let's say our snack mixes. Like we do peanuts, like cocktail peanuts with bourbon smoked salt and pepper. We do one with bourbon smoked chili powder. We do a honey roasted peanut with bourbon smoked curry. Um, I send spices that we do here to a company that does peanuts. Um, you know, it, you know, I have 3 co-packers in Louisville, and then probably 6 around the country that specialize in what they do. And that's been an important part of our growth is, the relationships that I have with co-packers that do things the way that I would, and they strict standards, and um, you know believe in they believe in what they're doing, and it's they want to work with companies like mine, which sometimes makes it cost a bit more, but it's worth it.
yeah. Now, when you started the company, you've got 2 kids,
Hmm.
and they were, they were very young, maybe, right? Like they were just born basically at that point.
Yeah, when I started, Madeline was maybe a year. Um, Now she's 19 and she's at Ole Miss. Max was 2. He's at Lehigh. Um, they didn't know, or I don't say they didn't know. They don't know me doing anything other than this. They're so unimpressed with the shit that I do. Like early on, it was Dad's going to be on the local news, or Dad's in the newspaper, and now it's like, that's just what that's Dad. Um, for me, like growing up, my dad was always like moving jobs, and it just, there wasn't the stability. Right? He worked for somebody. He was in corporate America, and there wasn't any thought in my head that I didn't want that. I just, I don't know. I just always had an entrepreneurial mind. Um, I think it's been a great experience for the kids. They actually have a great perspective when it comes to this. Their mom knew what she wanted to do when she was in eighth grade, and she did it. She took all the steps, you know, one right after the other to get to where she is. And if you're fortunate enough to have that kind of mindset, I think it's fantastic. That wasn't me. It doesn't make it wrong. You know, I eventually found my way, but I love that the kids got to see it and that there's, you know, we've had a level of success and it's created some stability. You know, working for yourself is nice. It's different than working for somebody, obviously. You know, but it's a give and take. It's like, you know, where's your comfort level? You know, and I I'm comfortable with where I'm content with where I am. Um, you know, it's I just I can't imagine doing anything else. And like, if it were just me making all the decisions, I'd probably be a bit more afraid. But I've surrounded myself with people that protect me from myself, that help me with the tough decisions. They're not made just by me anymore. I have 50 people here that, you know, make me shine. You know, that they've bought into the brand and the vision that I have for the company, um, which is, you know, something that I attracted. You know, I didn't go out looking for it, and a lot of times, like my CFO, Olivia, um, you know, is probably the most important woman in my life. Um, Nobody else wants the title, um, and you know, um, she's that part of my brain that I don't know how to use. Reason.
Well, virtually a year ago, I came to a pivot point in my life when found out that my job was going away, and
Mm-hmm.
that's never. I've said before to people, however you want to term it, fired, let go, elimination. It's never there's no easy way to do it. It's never fun for either party to go through it, and it's certainly not great and fun to talk about, right? It's an ego bruise because you've lost something, and it's definitely something that opens up your eyes to perspective. I mean, there's a part of me that was like, I need to just get out of the industry. I want to get out of the industry. I want to go explore something completely new. But it's been what I've loved to do is share the stories of people like yours and other people with chefs and connecting distributors, or just generally making connections with people is what I've loved to do. And I had some really good things come my way, and I thought to myself, if I don't try, if I don't take a chance on myself to figure out if I can build something. And there's also, I've been lucky to be surrounded by a lot of successful people. Like, it's okay to be an employee. You don't have to just own a business for the sake of owning a business. And
Mm-hmm.
in fact, you could have way more stress on you owning that business than being a productive, successful employee that has a fantastic career. And I took a chance and decided I wanted to build on my own. And there's been a lot of, like, just like you said, I for me, the accounting side is something that's not a strength of mine. It's never been a strength of mine. I didn't study it in school on purpose because I knew I didn't want to do it.
Right.
And now I'm involved in that side of things. And when you think about scale, how do I scale the company? How do I duplicate me? Because I can't be in every meeting. If I'm in every meeting, I can't work on the business. So there's definitely things that I've tried to, or that I'm so young into my own business, and I'm finding things out all the time. But draw inspiration from people like you, and have conversations to help understand and help me pave my way. And I think generally, if you're pursuing, whether that's a sales career or whatever your job is surrounding yourself with the right people that can help guide you, and take chances and experiment You know, if it doesn't work, try something else. And especially in today's world where now you're trying to figure out how does AI work into anything that we do? Does it work? And how do I integrate or new technology beyond that? I mean, is it a new bottling line for you that now can make the 12 people that were doing that before more efficient to the overall business and put more thought into it? And seeing that you now have 50 people around you is freaking crazy, because I remember it was just such a
Me and
small
my
crew
mom.
early on, right?
Yeah.
And now, like, super cool to see you having built that, and that responsibility that comes with that, right? It's like, that's 50 people that have families, that have birthdays, that have, like, things going on in their life that you're helping achieve. And so that's been super cool to witness. As you've built your business, are there any standout moments where you feel really proud of, like, man, I accomplished, I did that?
I mean, of course, there's dozens, right? Um, I don't really celebrate, you know. When something happens that is good, I might take a moment, but I'm not high fiving. I mean, the reason why we did it was to have success with it. I mean, that was the intention. Um, even in failures, I don't dwell on them. I let it go. I've got to learn something from it and move on. I think if you're asking me like something that I'm really proud of that we've done is that I had the chance to work with my mom and dad. Mom was employee number one, first
Wow.
hire, also the first fire.
Yeah.
Dad was employee two, and you know, dad had a lot to offer. Like he had a lot of wisdom and knowledge, but I was not prepared to hear him when I first started. I mean, I'm basing decisions on gut feeling and emotion. Like, and, he helped me write my business plan. He believed in it too. I mean, for a man that, was an engineer and had an MBA and, very strategic and scientific, he didn't understand that entrepreneurial mindset, but at the same time, he believed in me. My mom did too. But dad, I worked with him up until COVID. We retired him. He passed away in November of last year. But if you come in for a tour, like you'll see, like his thumbprint is on just about everything here. We've got equipment named after him. We have fonts named after him. His pictures around. I mean, they had an impact on this place, and that's one of the things that I hold near and dear. And I acknowledged it before he passed away. I didn't have to wait for him to die to realize it. Um, that's one of the things I'm the most proud of. That and the kids getting to see what they saw. You know, having a passion. You know, blind, whether that's healthy or unhealthy, it was a blind passion that I had to do something like this, and I saw it through. And I'm not done. I have a big vision for the company. What we've done here over the last 3 years has been important and monumental for the growth of the company because we had to have infrastructure and efficiencies in place. Um, but I'm on to the next thing already.
Where do you see things from a food service standpoint in your ability to reach more of the country or to reach more chefs? Like, how can you, how are you guys as a team working to achieve those goals, or transforming the business to, maybe expand the percentage basis of, you've got the different segments, but collectively you want to grow and every segment helps you get there. But when it comes specific to food service, what's your lens there?
Well, the difficulty is, with a company like mine and getting it, out there nationally is, distribution with everything. And we built the company as a wholesale company, and you mentioned earlier that, you know, you know, Google was new, and a lot of these things, influencers, Instagram, all that didn't exist. And honestly, in my business plan, there wasn't even a mention of e-commerce. I knew I had to have a website, but I didn't know what it would do. Um, but for food service, distribution, you know, the hurdles are, with the number of products we have, it's and the stories behind each one. It's like, you know, getting that story to the people that to enough people, and how do we get that out there? Companies like yours that are really good at retelling the story. You know me, right? We've watched each other grow. It's an easy thing for you to talk about, um, but not everybody's like you, and sometimes you've just got to filter through those kind of relationships and find the ones that will, that work the best for you. And it's sometimes it's not about volume, it's quality over quantity. And if we find, you know, I'm I'm set up to sell to really big venues. We still do things the same way. Um, we just do more of it. We have more pieces of equipment, so I can get it out there, and I've maintained the integrity of the products that we're making. Um, but just telling the story, and it it's not as easy as it sounds. We got to have relationships with people that can retell it, that
Yeah.
understand it.
Well, finding the right distributors are key, right? People that
Hmm.
are going to support you and tell your story on your behalf. And it's tough when you're in the business and you're making the product and you're having to, um, I mean, you've got a team of people with you, but you have internal goals and initiatives that you're trying to hit, and meanwhile trying to find the right distributor. I mean, there's a few organizations out there in distribution that talk broadly about food service distribution, but there's not just like this amazing outlet of information. You don't type into Google best specialty food service distribution companies in North America, or I guess you could use that in Chat GPT, and you're going to get very, very varied results on what actually populates. And, you know, we kind of talk internally that we try to curate a Spotify playlist for chefs that's like, if you like Bourbon Barrel, you'll like this product, and it leads you to this product, and it leads you to that product, right? And
Yeah,
that same holds true in distribution. If you see someone that's carrying Joyce Farms, it's probably a high likelihood that
yeah,
Bourbon Barrel Foods would be a fantastic fit. And so, if you're a brand in food service and you're trying to connect the dots, that's what I would look for. And we talked earlier, you used to go to fancy food for incubation and trying to go and look and see. It's expensive to be a part of it. Distributors are kind of pulling out of it, like it used to be, where you would go and hey, we're the flagship for specialty in the Southeast. Well, again, now that you have website, social media, YouTube, what's the cost of going to these shows, and what do I get in return for it? And there's also slot space that you have to worry about within distribution, right? And then you have to think about refrigerated freight going from point A to point B. In your case, you may not have that layer, which makes it a heck of a lot easier. And as
right.
someone in distribution that's looking for product, yours is such an easy one to go and see any type of a chef with, because any fun chef, I mean, if you've not seen Bourbon Barrel's products, the branding's fantastic. There's a beautiful ponzu sauce, but when you go and do a cold call on someone, or you're just doing, every sales rep has their book of business, and you're responsible for growing that book. And it could be virtually, it could be in person, text message, phone call, a variety of ways to build that relationship. But when you're going to physically see someone to grow your sales and increase your credibility, man, Bourbon Barrel was the one that was, you just keep that in your back pocket and just taste people on it and share the story real quick. And it was always one of the products that I love to talk to chefs. And as a distributor, I think you have to layer in those fun feathers in the cap that differentiate you from everybody else. I mean, at the end
Hmm.
of the day, a distributor sells commodities, like it's
Right.
oranges, apples, it's seafood. I mean, you may have different labels, but every chef, and it's interesting too, because, I got a lot of my chops with What Chefs Want, that was founded in Louisville. And,
Hmm.
we basically had a reason, or we gave a chef every reason not to say no to us. There's no minimum, 7-day a week delivery, latest cutoff time, broken case, all the things that when you go and see a chef and they say, well, what's your cutoff time? When you say a later cutoff time, I'm like, huh, okay, I can't tell them no to that because you beat my other cutoff time. Well,
Hmm.
what's your minimum? Thinking that you're going to say 350. Well, it's nothing. Oh shit, I can't say no to that. All right, well, you probably deliver 4 days a week. No, we're here 7 days a week. Well, damn it. Now it's like, to get in the door,
Do you
what do
still
you
like me? Yeah.
do? Yeah. Now, again, talking about pivot points, um, for me, and I think there's a lot of things that go into you performing at your peak. And we took family pictures back in November, and I saw myself, and I was like, God dang, I'm just not happy with physically how I look. And I eat like crap, I drink like crap, everything in, and I'm not exercising. And back in when I saw that picture, I wanted to change, but I didn't take the effort to truly change, and that didn't really happen until April of this year. And started to pour into myself, because I did it before kids, and then we give ourselves reason, work and kids, and it's chaos and all these things, and kind of neglected to put into myself to be the best version of myself. And um, started to work out and feel a lot better. I'm by no means anywhere where I want to be, and starting to eat better and do the things. But are there any things for you that you're, in that personal life standpoint, that you've made changes to help you?
Yeah. I mean, I made some big decisions in my life, you know, 5 years ago, realized some things about myself that I didn't like, that I wanted to change, that, have helped me to settle and lead a more peaceful life. There's balance, which I didn't have, before. Balance is important. I had to understand how to deal with things. I wasn't a natural born leader. Like, I had to learn how to lead. And I have 50 employees. If I don't know, or if I'm not aware of trying to be better about leading, um, I don't have a company. I had to learn. I actually appreciate it more because I had to learn it. Um, Navigating something like this, being your own boss, can be really stressful. It doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be stressful. I'm content with where things are, with the desire to continue to grow, with this vision that I have. And so with contentment, I've relieved myself of stress. My life is much simpler. I we are aggressively trying to grow, but at the same time, just taking things as they come. I've built a really good team, that every decision I make, however small it is, affects them. And, you know, it, have, I being in a good mindset every day is, it's, it's not going to be every day, but you got to catch yourself and be aware enough to know when you're not your best version. And it sounds like that's where you are, where you saw, okay, look, because not everybody has that ability to see that, oh, I don't like that guy, and you're looking at yourself. It's like, what can I do to be better? Not everybody achieves even a level of self-awareness like that, you know but if you continue to grow with it, you start to pick up on even the smaller things, where it just makes for a better day. It makes life a little easier. It doesn't have to be hard. We're doing what it is that we want. There should be some joy in that. And if you can't find the joy in it, then you got some work to do. We're doing what we love to do, having conversations about things that we enjoy, that we've been able to create a career out of. Not
Yeah,
everybody
and
gets to do that.
100%. I mean, if I love to talk about food, cook food, eat food. Whenever I'm in a, you know, going to Europe, I want to go to see a cheesemaker. I want to go see, prosciutto di Parma, right? Like food tourism, if you will, right?
Hmm.
Like I want to see how food is made and the stories behind that. And, I often am surrounded by people that could be, um, in jobs that they don't enjoy. They're there for a paycheck, and the paycheck brings them more misery than maybe taking a step back to
No,
be a
yeah.
better version of themselves.
Well, everybody works for their own reason.
Right.
The reason I work doesn't have to be the reason why somebody else does, right? And maybe the joy that I'm able to derive from what I do professionally, um, someone else that is just going to work for the paycheck finds it some other way. It's a means to an end. Like their paycheck frees them up to spend time with their family. You know, um, there's balance. I do what I do because this feeds my soul. Like I love what I do. I get asked all the time, "Are you going to sell?" I'm like, "Yeah, I get too much out of it right now." Well, I have a number in my head, obviously, but no one's offered me that. But I I love what I do.
Have you
I've
always had that
never,
perspective on balance?
huh?
Have you always had that perspective on balance?
No, God, no, no. I was, my story. Like 5.5 years ago, I made a huge change in my life. I was blind to a lot of what it is that I'm able to talk about now, like completely blind. And I don't have the company I have in year 18 if I don't make that change in my life. And I quit drinking. I it was clouding my growth. I wasn't who I wanted to be. Um, and it was just that moment, where I don't want to be that. I owe myself more than that. And ever since then, um, life's gotten easier, you know, even in the shitty moments, it's still like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know.
Yeah, I mean, see, your evolution, not just as a company, but as a person, has been amazing to see. And, we all have moments in time that make us think differently, that can create a it's a catalyst for change,
Hmm.
and everyone has their own path to go through. And, fortunate to be around many people that forge paths. And, I think you're right. Like, hey, we're going to roll with the punches, and we're going to figure it out and try to take away things that apply stress or have the opportunity to create a stress moment. And, you know, salespeople in food service obviously are always dealing with late truck, wrong product. I mean, you name the litany of chef wasn't organized to get the order on time, and now like his fire is your fire. And
Right.
just there's so many things that can beat you down. But I think changing that perspective, like, hey, it's
I
just
think
food.
getting perspective on things is really important because at the end of the day, it's like the world's not going to end because the truck was late. Yeah, it affects your schedule a little bit, but you'll be okay. You know, it's not ideal. It is what it is. What do you cussing out the sales rep? Is that going to make it show up any quicker, or was it my fault that your bottle, or your package got lost in the USPS mail system? No, but I'll make it right. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. We'll do what we can to get you what it is that you ordered. Come up with a solution rather than just, enjoying the problem too much. as much as I love problem solving, I mean, it's, there's more things to stress about than shit like that. And
Yeah.
that's what I've been able to let go. And this
Life.
company is such a big piece of me and who I am that, you know, if I like one and not the other, then, I'm telling a lie. Much prouder of who I am and who I've become now, and being in alignment with, my business, which is what we're talking about, but, you know, life in general.
Well, Matt, we're coming up on the hour. I certainly
You don't want
appreciate
to
you.
go another hour?
I mean, we could for
No, it's
sure.
perfect. My computer is getting ready to die. So,
Well, thanks for joining us. Where can people find you that may not know you
uh,
or Bourbon Barrel?
bourbonbarrelfoods.com. That's our website. If you're visiting Louisville, would love your chefs to come in for a tour. Anybody else watching this that wants to come and tour, we just opened a new tasting room and event space. We redid all of our production, so it's very presentable. You get to see a soy sauce microbrewery. You'll see how we do all our smoked spices. We do all of our own fulfillment here also. So you're actually going to be, if you come visit, we're very entertaining. We get high marks for our tours, and we're a bit of a reprieve from all your other bourbon tours. Where how many times can you hear someone say 51% corn? Um, it's a bit of a break. So we're in Butchertown. You can find it by going to the website bourbonbarrelfoods.com.
They do a great job with the tour. It's beautiful. It is within, you know, scooter distance from downtown. You can definitely walk. You're going to be.
People
It's
in
a
Louisville don't walk anywhere if it's more than a block.
Yeah. If you're in Manhattan, you would 100% walk.
Yes.
But in the South, you take a car everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
jump on a scooter. But Matt, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy for you.